This is Josh, Grey Duck Customs. I'll be your host for today, and we are going to do a very quick one today. Got a couple layers of fiberglass. This is 1.5 ounces. Got some resin that is Orca 555, available at my homies over at Express Composites. Got some catalyst that is the 925H, just like so. And we are going to do a quick couple layers on some molds that I started yesterday. These are some Honda badges, as I'm sure you can still read the logos. And this is a NACA duct. So, race car, pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to mix up the resin real quick here, and we are going to literally just do a 2-layer blast. Nothing crazy, just kind of real time. Like I said, I like to show you guys what's going on and how the real world is when it comes to fabrication. No editing, no cuts, no breaks. We just rock and roll around here. Throw our appropriate amount of catalyst in the mix dispenser there. Since I already got the first couple layers down yesterday, this is going to go a little bit easier, I think. I hope. Not that it went difficult yesterday, but typically the second layers go a little bit smoother than the first ones do in terms of speed. With this particular vinyl ester resin system, I get about 30 minutes of work time because of the catalyst that I'm using. There are a number of different catalysts on the market. I highly recommend using the 925H because of its extended work time. So when it does start to go off, it will go off very quickly. So that's something that you have to keep in mind in terms of the size of the project that you're working on. If you're not ready for it, you will you will end up in a pickle real quick. Some of the other catalyst systems are a more progressive gel cure. So you'll get about 15 minutes before the resin starts to get kind of not workable anymore. With this stuff, like I said, I get about half an hour before the resin is going off. And when it goes off quick. You are SOL if you are not in a good position. So, all right, resin's mixed up. I'm going to literally do 2 layers of glass on this one, do 2 layers of glass on that one, and we'll see how quick we can get this done. One of the first things I always tell you guys is get the resin on as quickly as possible. I'm not worried about air bubbles. I'm not worried about working it. I am just worried about getting the resin on the fiberglass and getting it saturated as quickly as you can. There's a reason for that. The fabric has a glue that holds all the little bits and pieces together. And the resin itself is what dissolves that glue. So the faster you can get that on, let it sit, that glue will dissolve. It will make it much easier to conform. So I'm going to switch over to this mold real quick here. These are my Honda logo badges. And same thing, I'm just going to blast this out real quick. This is not going to be a long live. I do have a playlist that I will be starting for Honda badges and NACA duct. So if you want to watch the full process, go check that out. With this side, I'm going to end up doing both layers at one time because it's fairly flat. It's not complex at all. So we're just going to get this out as quick as we can. I hope I mixed up enough resin. I really don't want to mix up any more resin. And same thing, get the resin on the chop mat as quickly as you can possibly get it out there. I'll do this probably one more time before I end up demolding this and building some cool flanges. And then from there, I'm going to be making some cool badges. My live yesterday, I was talking about doing these out of clear casting resin, or casting acrylic, so it'll basically be clear plexiglass. And what that means is that once I get these all set to rock and roll, I will be making Honda logos that glow, that light up. So they will not only be turn signals, they will be side marker lights as well. And this one, you can see that the fabric is starting to conform. That's because we've let that glue dissolve a little bit. I am going to poke a couple breather holes in this real quick. Poke, 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 poke. So you don't need to cut the fabric into a million different pieces. Just slowly work that fabric. And because, like I said, the glues are dissolving, the fabric becomes very, very, very conformable very quickly once the glues dissolve. This is a little bit heavier chop mat than I used yesterday, so it's going to take a little bit more effort to get some of the air bubbles out. So I like to practice a center out lamination. So when I'm working the air bubbles, you've got to give it somewhere to go, right? Like if you push the air bubbles towards the center, where are they going to go? They're going to get stuck in the center of your part. So if you try to push them outward towards the corners, you'll have much, much, much better luck with a good lamination. Just use your head. It's common sense. I know common sense is kind of a thing of the past these days, but do your best, right? Try to plan it out. You guys watching have any questions, feel free to ask. I am very, very open to answering any sort of tech questions when it comes to composites, when it comes to materials, when it comes to just ideas. So don't be shy, say hi. And again, same thing, we're just going to get the resin out as fast as we can get it out initially. I think I'm going to probably end up with about the perfect amount of resin that I mixed up here. If you like this kind of stuff, I do have an Instagram channel. Same name as my YouTube channel, Gray Duck Customs. Gray Duck Customs comes from a little inside joke. I am from Minnesota, and in Minnesota, we don't play Duck, Duck, Goose. We play Duck, Duck, Gray Duck, which apparently is the only state in the country that recognizes Duck, Duck, Gray Duck as the actual name of the grade school game. So again, I'm going to let this sit for just a second, let those glues dissolve. Move the camera back to the Honda badge side. And this is where things get fancy. I don't want to say fancy, but I got a bubble roller here. This is just a plastic 1/2-inch roller. And now that some of the glues have dissolved, I'm going to work these bubbles out. Honestly, how you doing? Happy Tuesday. We are doing some fiberglass rolling, as you can see, working the bubbles. Let me see if I can get this a little closer for you guys. You subbed. Thank you so much, man. I'm working on getting my subscriber count up. I don't do a lot of video editing. I like to do my videos live, and I like to show shorts, but I don't do a lot of video editing. So if you turn your notifications on, you'll be able to catch my lives when I go live. And I'm trying to do that a little bit more regularly, especially on some of these smaller projects. I find that doing things live, I'm able to show you guys the tips and the tricks as I'm doing them, instead of going back and editing. You turned 8, as in 8 years old? I don't think I registered this as being made safe for kids, but okay. Happy birthday. Okay. Congratulations. I have actually taught an 8-year-old to fiberglass before. I was doing some boat repair at a boat repair shop, and I was able to teach the owner's son how to do fiberglass. There we go, working that very, very slowly. So most of my content is, I would say, adult geared. It's not necessarily geared for kids, but if you like fabrication stuff and you want to get into customizing cars and Hot Wheels and all that kind of fun jazz, I suppose that you could pick up a couple tricks and maybe build something cool. My other YouTube channel is called Project Honda Rod, and that would be my hot rod channel. I ended up building a hot rod from scratch a few years ago, and I built the chassis and the body and everything myself. It was a very, very, very fun process. I learned a whole lot during that series. And I'm a big believer of chasing your dreams. So if you've got a dream, you can make it happen too. There, see, check that out. No more air bubbles. The roller is magic. There we go. So that one is pretty good. Yeah, it's HONDAROD. Sorry, it's Project Honda Rod. PROJECTHONDAROD. Project Honda Rod. As in Honda Hot Rod. To my knowledge, it is the only mid-engine Honda powered rod in the world. Someone can correct me if I am wrong. I know that there are a couple of other Honda powered hot rods out there, but I have never seen one with the engine in the back. So that's something kind of cool. All right, now we're going to go over our NACA duct. And again, I'm going to start just by pushing this stuff in the center down with the paintbrush. You can see it's very, very, very conformable now that some of the glues have separated. And I am going to need to poke a couple breather holes in this real quick. Just kind of here and there. That lets the air out. I try not to get super, super fancy around here. I try to do everything by hand. There are some fairly fancy techniques that I use on occasion, but for the most part, this is all stuff that anybody can do. Where there is a will, there is a way, right? A little bit of motivation goes a long way in the custom fabrication world. And as well as obviously having a little bit of tech support from time to time, which is what I like to be, is a lending ear and a lending hand for people that have questions. So I'm trying to get all the little air bubbles out here. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's probably a little bit smaller than what you can see on camera. You can see some of the big air bubbles here, but there are a couple little tiny, teeny ones that aren't going to show up very good on camera. So I'm going to take our bubble roller here and work the area that I can. There we go. You can start to see some of them come up. And again, I'm going to try to go from the center and go out. Center out. Air is dumb. Air is very, very, very stupid. It goes where it wants to go. And it doesn't need a lot, but you got to tell it where to go. So a little gentle persuasion. I'm not using I'm not using a lot of force here to to move the bubbles. It's just a medium pressure against the roller. But I'm just slowly telling the bubbles where to go. That's pretty glary, isn't it? Let me see if I can get some of the glare off of that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Sorry. Maybe it'll get less glare once some of the bubbles roll out here. Just a nice, steady, even pressure. I see some of these guys that'll really, really push down super hard on their parts, and that is completely unnecessary. Just be patient. Take your time. You'll get there. The cool thing about fiberglass that I've learned over the years is I am able to create very, very crazy shapes with fiberglass. It's very, very good for artists, custom creations, compared to things like iron, steel, aluminum, you know, that kind of medium. Fiberglass is much more forgiving. You can make a lot of crazy shapes with it very, very easily. Curvy stuff, roundy stuff. And that requires a lot of fancy tooling if you're going to do it without of steel or iron or aluminum, etc., etc. Cardboard. Whatever, right? Whatever you got to do to get the job done. Make your dreams come true. There are some bubble rollers that have little pokey pokes all over the place. What is this? This is a NACA duct. So this would be for a race car. It's just an air vent. So the air will go in through there. So it's kind of like a duct for like brake cooling. This is going to be for my hot rod, which we were talking about just a little bit ago, called Project Honda Rod. It is the world's only mid-engine Honda-powered hot rod. And I recently did an engine upgrade in it last year, and I wanted some extra air cooling. So there we go. And the other part of this mold process is a pair of vintage Honda badges. So these are going to be made out of clear casting resin. So they're going to be backlit with LEDs or neons. I don't know which one yet, probably LEDs. But these are going to be made clear. That way I can backlight them so that they're going to be amber or red or blue or whatever colors, doesn't really matter. And they're going to come through the body. So as I'm driving, the Honda logo will glow. And then when I turn my blinker on, blink, 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 blink. Pretty easy, huh? Pretty understandable. So yeah, these are the molds for the parts I'm going to be making. These are not actually the parts yet, but I needed to make the molds to make the parts because the parts are going to be carbon fiber. Or at least this is going to be carbon fiber. The Honda badges are going to be clear resin. So they won't be carbon. I could make them carbon fiber. I could make a pair out of carbon fiber, I guess. Just because I have the mold, I could make a pair. So I do a lot of this carbon fiber mold work, custom fabrication things for race cars and motorcycles, scooters, stuff like that. And I tend to see a lot of the YouTube channels that do composite fabrication gatekeep secrets. So you'll watch a 20-minute video, half-hour video, and it's very, very edited. And the guys will hide all kinds of tricks when they're doing it. And that's really, really frustrating because I have to answer a lot of those kind of questions when people are like, oh, I saw this technique on this and this channel. I was like, yep. And what they didn't show you was this and this and this. So like I said, I love doing live videos just so you guys can see the actual real world process of what this stuff actually takes. If you're doing video editing, obviously you can hide a lot of secrets, and I don't think there need to be secrets in this industry. Most of the people just don't want to do the work. So I'll show them all the secrets. The labor is still difficult. The setup and the planning and the preparations, and if you do screw up, oof, I mean, it happens. It's part of the learning curve, right? Just like anything. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Thanks. And I'm going to try to get into this tight area down here in the corner. It's kind of a blind corner. So I have a fancy LED lamp. And the LED lamp is going to be able to highlight some of those pinholes a little, or some of those air bubbles a little bit better. The air bubbles are going to show up within the LED light a little bit better. Ooh, my phone is blowing up. Sorry about the notifications, guys. I thought I turned that on silent. I guess I did not. Again, we're live, so anything can happen, right? That's the fun thing. There are some very, very, very difficult things that I do when I'm live that don't turn out. And I feel terrible because I feel like I kind of feel bad when things don't go right, but it's part of the process. Sometimes you make a part that does not work. And sometimes you think you've planned everything out correctly and you find out that you forgot a step or just something wasn't ready to rock and roll like you thought. And it's, I think that's what's really fun when things go wrong. They don't go wrong very often, but when they do go wrong, it's pretty fun to watch. But that's what happens in the real world. When things go wrong, how do you address it? How are you going to fix it? A lot of times doing fiberglass fabrication and carbon fiber fabrication, that means that you need to remake the part, unfortunately. There's not a lot of fixing stuff in this industry when it does go wrong. And I'm just using a very simple stipple technique to try to work some of those air bubbles again. Get right down in the very pocket there. These blind corners are kind of tricky. It probably would help if I had a 1-inch paintbrush. I don't right now. I only have 2-inch paintbrushes. But a smaller paintbrush would probably be the ticket for right here. It's okay. I'll stop at the store and get some tomorrow because I know I'm going to need some. But for right now, we make do with what we got. I'm kind of spinning the paintbrush, kind of rotating it there to try to catch an edge. And that very, very tight corner in the front there. It's really a tricky spot, to be honest. Let's see if I can get my roller down there and... Yep, barely. Whew, all right. That worked out. That worked out fantastic. My roller was the perfect length for that. Now I do have a big air bubble on the bottom of that though, but we can take care of that. I have the technology. So typically what I will do is I'll have a little pokey tool, right? A little pokey tool. So I'm just going to use a razor blade and I'm just going to poke the air bubble so that the air has somewhere to go. Zoom down in there. Just like so. And the air bubble will disappear just like magic, right? Downtown Julie Brown for you older folks. I don't actually remember that TV series, but I know that there is a TV series with Downtown Julie Brown. It was kind of a trademark phrase that someone would say back in the day. But that looks pretty good. I don't see any air bubbles down there. And that is what we are after. Just like so. Just like so. So yeah, 2 layers down on our NACA duck mold. 2 layers down on our vintage Honda logo mold. And 1 more round of this, and I think I should be set to be able to demold these. What I will end up doing is, on the next couple layers, I'm going to make a little bit more beefy lamination around around the flange here. I want to make sure that that stays nice and flat. What can happen with fiberglass sometimes is you'll get a little bit of bowing, so it'll start to curve or warp a little bit. And so by making the flanges a little bit fatter, I might even add some wood, like a wood frame around there just to keep it in location. I see one little air bubble right there. Come on, get some. There we go. That's a really, really tricky area. Let me get my headlamp back out again. Just to verify. Nope, I still got one little bubble. I'm going to just switch to a smaller paintbrush. I do have a tiny paintbrush. And by tiny paintbrush, I mean tiny paintbrush. I'm just going to... You want to try to get all the air bubbles out. It's very, very, very important on the first two layers. This is the second, well, this is the third and fourth layer technically. It's not as important on this layer, but you want to try to get all the air bubbles out if you can. It's just going to make a stronger part if you can get all the air bubbles out. Grab my roller tool here. Catch a couple more little bubbles I see floating on the side. And we'll just patiently work those up to the edge, and then we'll just roll them carefully out and about. Whoop. Bye-bye air. I have a friend who races out at the Bonneville Salt Flats for you guys that are into racing and motorsports history. We go out there every year for land speed racing, and one of my friends said, "Beat the air and you will win." And that motto applies in composites as well. You just got to be smarter than the air. There we go. That looks fantastic. And then one thing that we also have to do is, since there is resin on this bubble roller now, if I don't clean this, this is actually going to wreck the bubble roller. And these are, I don't know, $6 or $7, so they're not very expensive, but you don't want to be replacing them all the time. So I keep a bit of acetone very close, and I just want to make sure that I swish this around really, 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 really well and get all that resin off of there. That way you can reuse your bubble rollers. Sorry, I got pretty aggressive off camera, but I just didn't want to splash acetone all over my mold that I'm working on. So yeah, just like brand new. And I'll usually do that 3 or 4 times just to make sure that all the residue is cleaned up off of that. There we go. That can be reused over and over and over and over again. Usually a bubble roller will last me a year or 2 if I'm careful with it. If I'm not careful with it, it lasts one time and it's done. So let's see how we're doing on timing here. So I've still got pretty good consistency with the resin. It's starting to get a little bit thicker, so it's kind of I wouldn't say getting to gel stage yet, but it definitely isn't like it was when we first started the video. It's definitely starting to go off a little bit. It's not just runny. So that means I still have about 5 minutes of work time, maybe 10 minutes of work time. That's all good. So our brushes go right in the trash. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. And I think that is about it for today, guys. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscriptions. I very much appreciate it. And yeah, I will catch up with you guys probably tomorrow. I'll do another live that'll be basically a carbon copy of what I just did today, just adding a couple more layers to the molds. And I'll add this to the playlist. And I will catch you guys all later. So have a fantastic evening and rock and roll. I'll catch you guys later.